Hello, good evening, and welcome back. And today, we're revisiting our isometric cityscape, doing some recoloring and adding a little bit of detail to all the buildings. Now starting off, we're going to go layer by layer, adding colors to each of the building lots, and adding some shading and windows as we go. I decided to go this method so there was some uniformity to the cityscape, as well as just to make it easier on myself. Because adding color to each building as we went on would have been too time consuming, and I didn't want to waste a whole lot coloring this. All in all, I believe I spent only an hour or so coloring this piece. We add quite a bit of color here, from reds for brick buildings to greens and blues and even some purples and yellows. I wanted this to have a little bit more of a cartoonish feel rather than something realistic. Now, window and door placement on this was probably one of my biggest challenges, but all in all, I think we ended up with something pretty unique that worked out quite well, because I wanted some of the buildings to have unique layouts as far as windows and doors were concerned, just so that everything looked separate yet uniform. As if chunks of the city were built and erected at the same time. You'll see me go back and forth between the layers, picking up colors for the windows and everything, and dropping them onto the current. And I'll go back and forth, adding different shading and highlights to the sides of the buildings as we continue on. Just add a little bit more texture and detail. Here you'll see me trying out some ideas for rooftops, but in the end I decided to skip it, and we'll leave a lot of the tops blank for now. I may come back in the future and add those details to the roads, rooftops, and everything else later on. But for now, we're just going to stick to the coloring. We're going with a pretty simple formula for the color. Darkest to the right, mid-tone to the left, and the lightest tone up top. And then usually for the outline, I'll pick a dark outline and go even darker, filling in all the line work. And all the windows typically will be that same light blue, with the occasional darker cyan coming in just to give a little bit of detail and difference. And I keep a lot of the colors fairly muted here, leaning more towards the gray tones and an unsaturated, just so that it's not popping too much with color. I didn't want to read like a coloring book. Just a little bit of color to make it a little more fun. Now let's move on to our central tower here. I wanted this to be a nice glass tower, so that's why I used a lot of the same colors from the windows to bring through the entire building. this one was probably the toughest part, was this big behemoth of a building. Trying to figure out what colors I want to use and what textures for the walls. Trying out this brick laid pattern. But in the end, it felt a little too busy and out of sync with the rest of the scenery. So we decided to skip it and go back to the usual route, but adding more highlights and underlines to the windows, just to give it a little bit more. Now we start getting into the last little bit details with the pyramid, City Hall, and the park. In the end, I'm quite happy with how this piece turned out. Definitely have to come back and add some more fine details later on, but for now, I think this was a good point for it. It was a great practice in isometric design. I'm gonna have to do more of this in the future. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and enjoy the final piece. We'll see you guys next time.